Hey, welcome back to the DeCesare Group Podcast. I'm your host, Jim DeCesare, and I'm glad you're here. Hey, did you know the DeCesare Group Podcast is now on YouTube? It's only second to Facebook as the top social media platforms of 2024. We hope you will subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts to receive notifications every other Monday when we drop new episodes. I'm excited to welcome this week's guest, Rick Seadler. He serves as Regional President for Pinnacle Financial Partners in Bowling Green. He works both in Bowling Green and at the firm's Symphony Place headquarters in Nashville, Tennessee. Seadler began work in financial services in 1987, having started in the file room at First National Bank of Louisville, which later became National City Bank. He quickly worked his way up the organization to eventually become president of the Bowling Green market and then senior vice president for Tennessee Development. Rick also spent 9 years as the Tennessee market president for Commerce Bank, serving the entire state of Tennessee and western and south central Kentucky before joining Pinnacle in 2017. Rick is very active in the community and shares his knowledge about economic and commercial development with us today. Here's my conversation with Rick Seadler. Rick, thanks for being on the DeCesare Group Podcast.
Oh, honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And so you're a longtime listener, first-time caller, right?
Absolutely. I was going to say that. You just stole it from me.
Hey, so let's talk about Rick a little bit. Tell us about your financial journey that started in a file room in 1987, and here you are today, market president.
Well, it is. I'm honored. It's hard for me sometimes to talk about this because I try to be a man of character and humility, but it is. I started actually, if you talk to my wife, Katie, she'll tell you that I started below the file room.
Okay.
Back in 1987, my first job is I was going to school in Louisville, Kentucky at Bellarmine College.
Couldn't get into Western, huh?
Couldn't get into Western.
Okay.
Couldn't get into University of Louisville. I had to go to Bellarmine College. I joke with my wife that I had to go to an academic school, but that's a different story.
I was going to say, Bellarmine's a really good school.
Yeah, it's a lot better than, they had easier standards back in 1986.
I got you.
But I started pulling staples out of pieces of paper when people would send in their credit card statement. If you look at it and it says, do not staple it.
Yep.
I did that for 8 hours a day, 4 days a week as I was going through school, and that's where I started. But how did it come from that to the file room? You know, I always say it this way, Jim. Somebody saw something in me I didn't see in myself.
Yeah.
And if you go back to, I've only changed banks a couple times in my almost 40-year career, it was somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So that's how it started. I went to school. First National Bank of Louisville is a name some people might hear and might notice, but it was an independent bank in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was up there, and I went through school, and when I was a teller, I graduated from the staple removing room to the file room to a teller. That's what we called them back then, if people don't know what that is these days. And a guy came and said, hey, I want to talk to you. And it was my regional manager, and I thought maybe I was losing my job. Mm-hmm. And he said, have you ever thought about banking? And I said, no, I really hadn't. And he said, you ought to think about it. And I got into their training program, which then became National City, where I worked with for almost 25 years. And every step of the way, I think I've worked hard at it. I think I've had great people that have helped me, but somebody always saw something in me for that next job, and that's been the most powerful thing. And that brings me all the way to here, that one of the greatest things about my role now is I'm coming back a second time, and people maybe don't know the story, but from the file room to the training program to corporate banking, then one day they said, we want you to move to Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I'm like, you know what? I married a Western girl a year ago. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Went home and told her we're moving to Bowling Green. And we did that from 99 to 2005. And that's when I moved to Nashville to start an office for the old National City Bank brand. And then years later, not to be too soupy with you on this, but then we had an opportunity to start something fresh up here with Pinnacle out of Nashville, and we've opened up an office, and we'll probably talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's my story. But it all goes back to somebody saw something in me that probably I didn't see in myself, even though I had confidence in education, and that was, here's something that's going to grow you and challenge you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I got to ask a question about the staples.
Mm-hmm.
Did more people send their stuff in with staples or without?
Well, I answer it this way: I had a job.
Yeah, 4 days a week for 8
4
hours
days
a
a
day.
week, 8 hours a day, as I was going to school full time. More people than you think don't follow directions.
Yeah.
And they do staple it. So all I had to do was take the staple out and make sure I put the check over to the left and the invoice over to the right.
And You succeeded at that.
And I bet still today there's job security people are still doing that.
Oh, somewhere. Yeah. So, I think that's great. Someone seeing something in you. And I think all of us have had that experience at some point in our life where they say, do you know what? You might be really good at this or that or another. And it's important for us to have those folks. But it's more important that as we advance in age, we do the same thing for others.
Absolutely. I think there's so much about giving back. That's just not, I think, wordsmith for me or you. It is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us at those days knew we had it in us, but we didn't know what to do.
Right.
And there's some people like my son who knows he's a senior at Western Kentucky University, physical therapy. He's going to PT school. He knows what he wants to do. There's a lot of us that went to school, got a finance and accounting and business degree, but how are we going to apply it?
Yeah.
And some of it's luck, some of it's hard work, some of it's good, but it always is. And I tell people today, give back of what you got.
Absolutely. So you've kind of had a front row seat to a lot of the economic and commercial development. I mean, you're from your time here in Bowling Green, your time in Nashville, your time in Louisville. But talk about what you're seeing currently in Bowling Green and Warren County from your perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm going to share it in two ways. I think I have the unique experience to see it, leave it, and then come back. So 98 to 2005, when I was here, it was growing, not exponential like it was. I still think it was weighted heavily with just a couple manufacturers and the university.
Yep.
And so then you leave. Even though we left residency here, we still came back, but not like it is full-time now. So you come back, and let's say that it's been about 7 years full-time with our Pinnacle branch and me in the last 2 years. What I would say is it's exponentially grown to the point where it's hard for me even to describe it. I had a conversation, an interview recently with the news, and they said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Why not?"
Yeah.
That was my first question, or my first answer. But what I see is a community and a regional community that is at, I wouldn't say a crossroads, but what are we going to be?
Yeah.
We know what we are, and we've been good at it. But I just got done in a chamber meeting on the 2050 plan. And we're going to grow to 200,000+.
Yeah.
They say there's 42 people coming here a day or a week.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time we finish this, there's going to be that. I see houses being built. But what I think that the best thing that's happened here in the other communities that I've been in, I see two things. I see a common vision between city and county. I see a common vision between city and county leaders. And I see a continual, how do we get it done?
Yeah.
I've been in other communities that I won't share with you to be, I guess, disrespectful to them, but it's always, no, we can't.
Right.
Here I've always seen, yes, we can. And I think that is one of the biggest, I think, compliments to this community in this region.
As we, in the previous 65 episodes of this podcast, we have talked a lot about how our community leaders collaborate together, and it is unusual. There are a lot of communities where there's infighting, and sometimes that's enough to make things not happen. And you have to have that collaborative spirit between, city, state, local, business leaders, everybody coming, pitching in and helping out to make our community the greatest in the country. And I know there are a lot of great communities within our country, but we live here, so we're going to say this is the greatest in the country.
Absolutely.
And we've seen it. I moved here in 1992. Campbell Lane was still 2 lanes. The mall was kind of out there by itself,
Yeah.
and we've seen all this growth over the last 30 or so years. And it's just blowing up here, and it's because we've got a lot of great things to offer. We're centrally located within 75% of the nation's population. We're right on an interstate. We have a great university. We have a great school system. We have great people. And now we have great industries. We have a great chamber of commerce. And then we have great business partners like Pinnacle and others as well. So you've seen a lot of this. So with all this growth, talk about how this contributes to the job growth in South Central Kentucky and the challenges it brings with it that you're seeing.
That's, I guess that's the $1 million question that I think they're trying to answer with the strategic 2050 studies and getting groups together and leaders. But the challenge we face is I think they're going to continue to come. Unless somebody, I'm being a little joking here, screws it up, which I don't think is going to happen. We seem to be in a bubble here. We seem to be in a good bubble, which I mean that you don't see the ebbs and flows as you see other places in jobs and housing market and the volatility. The challenge that you're going to face, I think, is affordable housing. Where are you going to get the people from? Two other things that I think that people don't think about a lot. The infrastructure. I don't mean the infrastructure of roads. I just mean sewers.
Yeah. Water, sewer.
You've got to have waters and sewers
electricity.
for growth. And one thing that I'm going to steal it from my presentation that I was at earlier today, daycare.
Yeah.
You don't think of that. You think of the big things like I got to get the people, I got to place them somewhere, I got to make sure they have food and water and sewer, I got to make sure they're trained. But what are we doing with their kids?
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. So I think that is going to be the biggest challenge. And here's where I think that it also is one that I try to do, not to pivot and put a commercial in for Pinnacle.
That's
Pinnacle
okay.
Bank.
It's my podcast. You can do that.
Okay. But our team spends our time storytelling. If you went to Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm going to get to my point in a second, but if you go to Nashville, Tennessee, and you say Pinnacle, they know who you are.
Right.
24 years later, top market share, strong community supporter, great associates, great engagement. When you come up here, they don't. So we continue to say who we are and what we're doing. I think that's what's going to also be a benefit to the community here as well, that we're good storytellers.
Yeah.
Because not just we're bringing in jobs because of economic vitality or economic whatever or subsidies. We do it because we're telling a good story. I still hear people when they go, where are you from? Where do you live? Where you work in Bowling Green? What's that? Where is that? You ought to come here. But instead of just saying, it's more than just stopping for gas, and it's more than just Buc-ee's now.
Yeah.
There's more than that. So I believe that the city and county are doing a tremendous job to try to rethink that. But to get back to your question about the biggest thing is where you're going to get the people to work. And maybe we have to pivot from what we're doing with manufacturing and find other higher tech jobs where there's higher income, maybe less people. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that's also a focus as well.
Well, I think, in any community that's vibrant, you have that balance, of manufacturing and then, professional occupations, and then the university and the school systems and healthcare. We have those sectors, logistics, all those working together. You talked about some of the challenges, and daycare is a big one. I literally know a couple where the wife has recently left her job because it was going to be more cost effective for her not to work and watch her own kids than pay that money out, because they were losing money on their daycare.
Absolutely. As a banker that seems to lean toward decisions made on financial and fiscal, it is. It's easier to do that than it is to go to work and then just pay.
And I think there's one more challenge that we face, and that's our population is getting older. And we're going to have a lot more. And people are working longer than they used to because people are healthier for longer than they used to be. But at the same time, we're going to see more senior living facilities, more assisted living facilities, and that pop up because we do have a population. The baby boomer generation. I'm Gen X. You're Gen X. I'm 1 year from being a boomer. So I'm not too far away from assisted living, and that's something we have to talk about, and as community leaders to figure out how we're going to handle that.
And I'd even go a step further. I'm not a politician nor am I a leader, but I hope that
I'm a reformed one.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is true. That is true.
Recovering.
I go back to the storytelling, which is important, and that's not that you have to be great at it. It's just telling the story, of course, but also what the vision is.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge we face here is a lot of times these younger kids, that's what I call them, that have graduated, find the city and then the job. And what we would love to do is find the job and stay in the city. I spent 19 years in Nashville, Tennessee, and most people, when I was down there, what brought you here? I wanted to be in Nashville. Then where are you working? Well, then I found the job.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key, is the younger group that's coming up, who sees something, who can advise them, who can talk to them. But I agree with you.
Yeah. So, and it's, so for those of us that are, in the twilight parts of our career, let's take some time and mentor some young people and give them a hand up and show them the way and advise them when we can.
You're making me feel old.
Well, we are. No, we're not. So one of the things that I'm seeing, and I think it's not just here, but it's Allen County, Simpson County. This 10-county region is all having some growing spurts, but we're also seeing the connectivity between, for instance, Nashville and Bowling Green. And you're a perfect example. You're here because of your relationship with a company in Nashville that wants to be here. But we're seeing that, you used to drive to Nashville, and once you left Bowling Green, it was rural all the way until you got down to Rivergate. Now it's coming together.
It's almost completely together. I don't know if there's many wide open spaces. That used to be, we used to call that, mile marker 1 or mile marker 120 in Tennessee. That's not the case anymore.
No, it's the Portland exit, and so you've been up and down I-65 for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? What's happening there?
I see tremendous growth that's not going to stop.
Yeah.
And I think it's I'll get out of the fiscal policy and the tax policy of the two states. I'll just keep it at this. It's leaders that have a can-do, will-do, how can we get it done attitude. But I think also drives that is good people, good universities, and I'm going to put a plug in for good banks, because you have to have the capital.
Yeah.
You have to have the capital for growth. I'm passionate about this community. I'm passionate about Warren County. I'm passionate about South Central Kentucky. And I see it on a similar level as I did in Nashville when I've been there. Didn't start it, didn't end it, but what I see is I see this growth and this can-do. But we're almost, I never want to be the one to say that Nashville and Bowling Green are the same and they're extensions of each other. That's not the case.
Right.
The border cuts that off.
Sure.
But there is this, I think, wonderful play on each other that in now or later it's going to be just one continuous corridor. If you go to Raleigh and you go through Chapel Hill, Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point,
the triangle,
around there, you don't ever see an end and a stop if you didn't see a sign that said where you're going to get off on.
Yeah.
And from when I've been over there, where I've had some clients and have worked, it is this regional thoughts. And that's what I think will happen here, and that's the vision I'd want to see it. A border doesn't get in the way.
Right.
A state income tax doesn't get in the way. The only way it gets in the way is how do we get it done and the capital to get it done.
So you mentioned tax and fiscal policy, so I'm going to get into it a little bit. I have noticed, especially since the legislature has started lowering our personal income tax and personal the corporate tax in Kentucky, and we know that Tennessee doesn't have either of those, but they have a pretty high sales tax. And then they can have a local sales tax on top of that. I'm seeing more Tennessee vehicles moving in to South Central Kentucky now, more and more. I mean, if I look around my neighborhood and some of the new developments, a lot of those blue Tennessee license plates. And my thought is that while they don't have personal income tax or corporate income tax, they do have a higher sales tax and they do have higher property taxes. And if you go to Franklin, you go to the Walmart in Franklin any day of the week, 50% of those cars are going to be from Tennessee.
Right.
Because they'll drive to save that extra 4%
Sure.
or whatever it is. But I think what we're seeing here is that some Tennessee folks are saying, I may have to pay income tax or corporate income tax, but I'm saving money in the long run because I'm not paying these crazy property taxes, because in Kentucky, our property tax is locked in at 4%, no more than 4% a year. Are you seeing things like that?
I would agree with you. There's 9.75% to go to Kroger or wherever you go to shop. It's cheaper up here. Well, there's no tax on
groceries.
up here. What I call the wheel tax in the state of Tennessee is a little bit cheaper, but then based on Kentucky on the value. But I think it all somewhat evens out.
Yeah.
What I see even more of why you might see those cars up here, unless we went and polled them, you're also seeing a quality of life, and it's easier to go here than it is to go into Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
If you take a look at Nashville and Davidson County, where I actually lived in Williamson County, the county below it, the infrastructure has gone out to an almost, if you took a compass, I think that's what they call them, and you twirled it.
Oh, yeah.
And you went from Nashville proper and went from the state line. I know we're on radio here, but if you went from the state line.
No, we have video too.
Oh,
see?
there you go.
Hey,
You went from the state line and flipped all the way around and stopped at the Kentucky-Tennessee border. You're out 40, 50 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So then flip it the other way and go into Kentucky and go around it, and it comes right over Bowling Green, Warren County. And I think you're seeing people in the northern Nashville area say it's easier, more effective, and there's probably some savings to come up this way.
And it's still going to take me an hour to get to work.
It's still going to take you an hour to get to work. There's more people than I've experienced in the last 2 or 3 years, again, non-scientific, that would rather live here and drive in than live somewhere south of Nashville and drive up.
Yeah, and if you've ever driven in Nashville, coming from south to north at 8 a.m. in the morning, or five in the afternoon going north to south, it's a
brother. I've done that for about 19 years. It's a challenge and just getting worse.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but but it's great that we're in close proximity to Nashville. And I've shared this with you because when I go see the Preds play, I park in the Pinnacle garage. It takes me 1 hour from my house to the parking garage.
Absolutely.
It takes me an hour and 15 to get back because it takes 15 to get out of the garage.
That's a different story, but I agree with you.
Yeah, but it's a great location to park, by the way. If you're ever in Nashville, you need a place to park, go to the Pinnacle parking garage.
150 South 3rd Street.
Yep, it's easy to get right off Korean or the Korean Veterans Boulevard, and you're there.
Exactly.
Lots of fun. So you talked about community and being a part of the community. And you're plugged in. I mean, and I should back up just a little. You and I started getting to know each other probably 4 or 5 years ago. I guess when you were coming back into the market, I would see Rick at every coffee shop in town, literally.
Thank you.
And I'd be at Starbucks, and there's Rick. And so finally one day we were like, we see each other all the time. We started talking, and that's how we developed this friendship. But one of the things is that you and Pinnacle are very involved in the community. And I know you and I have had this discussion before where Pinnacle really doesn't do any advertising, on TV or radio, but you give to the community. And that's how you all stay involved. And that's how you personally stay involved. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's the 24-year foundational culture and engagement that we have when 30 founders started this firm with a couple $1 million in seed money in Commerce Street in Nashville, Tennessee. The true story was they said there's got to be a different way and a better way, and that's what happened. So the different way that we feel that we do it, that we want to do it, is, and it might be right, who knows? But I'll tell you, our track record shows that it is.
Yeah.
Is that we don't do commercials, we don't do signage. I mean, we'll support a Little League team, and if they have to
or the Jingle Bell Run,
right? But we did for you all, and they'll have our name up, and we'll be on a T-shirt that we can use later. But where we do it is we do have a philanthropy or community budget that we have for our Bowling Green Pinnacle office, but we do it by engagement.
Yeah,
we do it by one-on-one engagement. We do it by our volunteer times. We do it by sitting on boards and chambers.
Yeah.
And that's how it's been successful for us. We feel that where you really make a difference is when you really engage on that one-on-one level. And I will say that making a difference is something that I will fight you every day if you question me, and I'm just being a little emphatic here, is we do it because we want to do it.
Right.
It's not because we're told to do it or we need to do it to be on some regulatory checklist.
Yeah, and it's just being a good community partner.
Well, I almost call myself a Bowling Green native. and a Western Kentucky alumni, which I'm not. I told you about Bellarmine earlier. But because when we come here and we've brought this Pinnacle brand here, it's been here now 7 years, but our full team has been around almost 2. Everybody's here.
Yeah.
We hire from within. We don't bring people from without and come in. It just doesn't work for us. We identify the best people in the market. We go after them, we hire them, we get out of their way and let them do their job.
I know if I walk through your office right now, there are probably a half a dozen or more people in there I've known for over 25 years.
Yes.
Yeah, Pinnacle's been here, a few.
Absolutely.
But that's awesome that you're getting great talent and you're getting local talent too. But I really appreciate the fact that you all are involved in community, especially you. I know I saw you at the WKU basketball games and I see you around all the time, and you're plugged in and rightly so.
Yeah.
Because if you want to be a community leader, you got to be involved in a community.
Absolutely. You got to do that.
Talk about the expansion into Bowling Green. I know you've got a new facility coming out of the ground on Lovers Lane, and talk about a hot spot within Warren County.
Golly, you remember as you shared a little bit about the early days,
2 lanes and nothing but farmland and an airport.
And I still have people that don't live here that have moved out years ago, and I'll tell them what I'm doing. They're Lovers Lane. On that 2 little lane road, I'm like, guys, that's long gone.
Long gone.
That is an amazing, wonderful commercial corridor.
Yeah.
I could plug a couple people that I think had the vision, city, county, but also entrepreneurs that are in the private sector. I won't here on this.
You can. It's okay.
But the hub across the street,
Yeah.
just all the other infrastructure around there, I think that is a wonderful corridor. And we looked for a long time of where we really wanted to place our flag and spin the capital, and that's what we did. But quickly, I can try to. It's a passion for mine. Is that when I went to work for Pinnacle years ago, what do you want to do, Rick? And I said, guys, if you trust me, we need to be in Kentucky, and we need to be in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And why? Because it's an extension. It's close to Nashville. Well, that is the case. That's good to know. It's not a plane flight away. It's a drive away. 61 miles from the Pinnacle corporate office on 3rd Avenue South to where we are today in Bowling Green. But the reason why is because the Pinnacle brand, the engagement, the culture, our associate-driven model fits so well up here.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm passionate about that. We've got great other banks. We've got great other financial providers up here. But I think we wanted to be up here. We talked earlier about the economic growth here. That's a no-brainer. Why are we here? Why wouldn't we be here?
Yeah.
So what we've done is, for the first couple years, this was me. This wasn't the bank telling me.
You in coffee shops.
You in coffee shops. I joke that it's a hotel, a coffee shop, and a rental car. And that's what I did. And I wanted to go back and engage with my old relationships and clients that I knew and friends like you and leaders in the community and do it that way. And then after, it's hard to believe 5 years of doing that, a sizable book of business, loans and deposits, that's what we call it, a book of business that there was. I went back to our senior leadership and our founders and said, we need to be there full time.
Yeah.
And so we did. So we had to be somewhere quickly. We wanted to, so we went to Stadium Park Plaza, which, by the way, if you haven't been down there, you need to go because it's changed.
Oh, yeah.
There's always a story with a lot of things, and there's a story behind that facility and where it is and what it is. We were the first new tenants to go in there, even though there's people there. I mean, the occupancy is full.
Yeah.
There's a great stadium. There's a great baseball. The restaurants down there. So I do want to plug that if you haven't and you're listening, go down there. There's some great restaurants.
And there's some work being done right now. That there's some announcements coming. It's going to be adjacent to that parking structure.
Absolutely,
it's going to be a lot of fun.
So we wanted to put our flag in Bowling Green, and I wanted to be downtown. That's a true, confident statement I'm making. I wanted to be downtown, and so we're there. Stadium Park Plaza, we're there. So we got going. We started hiring a team. We have 5,000 square feet. We got a full retail branch. We can take your deposit, cash your check, smile, get a cup of coffee with us. But it's much more than that. We're now looking at another facility, and that's what we talk about, Lovers Lane. So we purchased some, I think, high-profile, not cheap property.
Sure.
Across from the hub. It doesn't have an address yet. And we just started construction in the first part of this year on a magnificent 12,000 square foot, 2-story, state-of-the-art financial center that I think is going to be a wonderful complement to that area. Okay. It's not going to change the area. It's not going to define the area. It's going to be so complementary to the area, and we're so looking forward. So that's coming out of the ground. Steel will come up probably in the next couple weeks, and then we'll see a hopeful groundbreaking at the end of first quarter 2025.
That's fantastic. A groundbreaking or a ribbon cutting?
I'm sorry. Groundbreaking already happened. A ribbon cutting with the chamber and our great friends and partners in 2025. And I mean, you could probably look through the records, but it is a multi-million-dollar capital investment for us. And that capital investment, I think, shows how serious we are to the community, but it also shows how special the community is, that we're coming in, and we think that I think that we've been welcomed with open arms.
And I know you all have some of the top economists in the country associated with Pinnacle. And I'm talking about, I love Art Laffer, and you all had him down here last year to speak.
Yes.
And just, I've always been a big fan of his. And what are your people, and you as well, what do you see for the future of this region?
The only variable is time. That's what Howard Schnellenberger said when he took the U of L job, and they laughed at him. They said, "Coach, what do you want to? When's a national championship coming?" He said, "And what's holding you back?" He said, "The only variable is time."
Right.
He was never there long enough to do that, but I will say that what's holding the community back, or what's holding us back, time.
Just time.
Time, capital, resources, infrastructure, people.
And we can do all those at the same time.
I think we can do all those at the same time. Yeah. I think we can. I pause because I want to use my words without any type of drama. We are honored to be here. We have been welcomed. We've hired the best. We give back. We do so many things for the community that are more than just lend you money and take your deposits and give you and do that. We do so many other things. We try to be a wonderful corporate partner. We're at the highest level of the chamber investment. We do so many other things. We sit on a wonderful boards. But at the end of the day, what we want is a relationship. Yeah. We want to know you. We want to know your family. We want to know to take you from good to great.
It's always good to go from good to great.
It's always good to go from good to great.
And I think you're going to see a lot of great things happen here in South Central Kentucky, and Pinnacle is going to be a big part of that. Rick's going to be a big part of that. Anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to add before we let you go?
Go Tops.
Always go Tops. I mean, they're right here on the wall.
No, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. My first and only podcast that I've ever done, and it's just been a wonderful engagement just to talk.
Well, I'm glad I set that bar at the right level.
You said it. I'm number 67?
66.
66, okay.
And hey, there's no ranking here. It's just how it worked out. But
as a coach said when they said, "Coach, you were the third or fourth one that they called," and he said, "At least I was called."
That's right.
And I always say, I don't care if I was 66 or 1, at least you looked me up.
That's it. Hey, yeah. Rick, thanks for being on the DeCesare Group Podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Rick Seadler, Regional President of Pinnacle Financial Partners, and thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the DeCesare Group Podcast. Hey, if you like the DeCesare Group Podcast, share it with a friend. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts, and you'll receive a notification every other Monday when a new episode drops. We'd love to hear your feedback as well, and who would you like to be a guest on the show? Reach out and let us know. You can also follow the DeCesare Group on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. And of course, the DeCesare Group Podcast is a companion to our newsletter, Soki Economic Development and Business News, which you can subscribe to on our website, thedecesaregroup.com. It'll hit your inbox every Monday morning. The DeCesare Group Podcast is produced by the DeCesare Group, a public relations and consulting firm based in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Our engineer and financial advisor is Justin DeCesare, with content contributions from Brooke Mattingly and Amy DeCesare. I'm Jim DeCesare, and join us again next time for the DeCesare Group Podcast.